pretty full list of items here before you. I'm hoping that the first bill I take up is going to be the most difficult to explain, but I know we've got some other folks who need to meet after us, so let's get right to business. First bill I'll call up is House Bill 365. This is a bill that establishes a rural hospital loan program. It's for hospitals that have 50 or fewer beds, and this would set up a fund that could consist of appropriations, donations, contributions, federal funds, gifts, monies, et cetera. Loan would not be less than $25,000 per hospital, not more than $100,000. It can be up to 20 years. They would have to pay a $1,000 application fee. It would be at 1% per annum. And all of the costs, all of the money that's utilized on the loan would have to be spent within 1 year. So if they had a capital project or something at a small hospital, they could get a loan through this fund at a low rate. They must maintain at least 85% of their full-time employees to utilize the loan for the period of the loan. I'll yield for questions if there are any. If none, the motion from Senator Polk is title sufficient do pass. And making sure that's not a strike. Title sufficient do pass. All in favor say aye. Opposed nay. The ayes have it. That bill will be reported. Next on the list is House Bill 400. And I'll recognize Senator Wiggins to explain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Simple bill for writing bailiffs. What it does is on lines 13 and 14 allows the presiding judge to decide whether they could pay their amount up to $100. And it comes out of the county budget along with the other items in that budget. And so it does cap it at $100. Any questions?
Questions, Senator Butler?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Wiggins, make folks that's not attorneys understand what you just talked about.
Yeah, thank you. So bailiffs are employed generally by the sheriff, and bailiffs are ones who provide courthouse security, and particularly in the courtrooms. And you have what's called writing bailiffs, which what that means is the bailiffs, for example, in a jury trial, they shepherd the jurors around at break because they need to be protected. And so that's what we mean by writing bailiffs. And it only applies to those bailiffs that this does. I hope that answers your question.
So how much do they pay them now?
I think we're just it's $55. And then on line 14, it gives the discretion to the judge to raise it up to $100.
Oh, okay.
And the counties, and particularly the judges, are given a budget through the county to pay for jurors and things like that.
Right.
And so, and the senior judge in particular, it oversees the budget up for those things. And so it's up to the judge if they so choose to raise their bailiffs up to $100.
Thanks, Senator Wiggins. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Butler. Any more questions? Not.
Title sufficient do pass, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. The motion is title sufficient do pass. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed nay. The ayes have it. That bill will be reported. That motion was title sufficient do pass. Strike all. Thank you, Corbin. All in favor say aye. Opposed nay. The ayes have it. Thanks. The bill will be reported. Next is House Bill 483. This is just extending a repealer on the local government's capital improvements revolving loan fund out until 2025. No questions. Motion is title sufficient to pass. All in favor say aye. Opposed nay. The ayes have it. Next is another repealer extension. This is a healthcare expendable fund. And I think this one's going to 2025 also. Yes, it is. Any questions about that repealer extension? Not. Motion for Senator Polk, title sufficient to pass. All in favor say aye. Opposed nay. The ayes have it. Next is House Bill 620, and I will again call on Senator Wiggins to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill is coming from the Department of Public Safety. And in short, it is restructuring some of the items in the Department of Public Safety, and particularly changing the name of the crime lab to Forensic Laboratory, and adds a separate Office of Driver Service Bureau and Office of Commercial Transportation Enforcement. The big part of the bill is for expert witnesses. Currently, the practice is in prosecutions in particular that there are crime lab experts who get subpoenaed and all over the state. What this is doing is allowing the Department of Public Safety to charge an expert fee for the subpoena of those experts. What that does is it brings it in line with the normal practice of subpoenaing experts. What we think it will also do is cut down on, and thus saving money on the use of not the use of the experts, but use them when they really need them, if that makes sense. And that gets paid out of the budgets for those prosecuting agencies. And then also in section, starting on lines 319, what it is allowing is for experts to be testify remotely upon proper notice by the state. And there are provisions to allow that to happen. And if the defendant objects, it sets out the proper notice. It has to be done on that. All this is to allow for for better efficiency at the state crime lab and the Department of Public Safety. Actually having talked to Commissioner Tyndall, the issue of the experts testifying remotely will save a lot of money and a lot of travel. So that's the bill, Mr. Chairman. Open to any questions.
Thank you, Senator Wiggins. Any questions for Senator Wiggins? Seeing none. Senator, your motion.
Title sufficient, do pass.
Motion is title sufficient to pass, strike all. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Bill will be reported. Next is a bill 660. It may be in a separate packet. I'm not sure. This concerns a proposal from Representative Barton to modify the Gulf Coast Restoration Fund slightly. We've actually got a change in here, a strike all, that would say that the existing language says assistance provided under this chapter may not be used to finance 100% of the cost of any project. However, this change would say that it would not apply to projects for public schools. So a public school that doesn't have a source of income would be able to apply for and receive a project under GCRF without having having to match part of that, the funds that they receive from GCRF. Yield for questions if there are any. Senator Seymour.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would this go retroactive to the beginning of our GCRF funds?
No, it would not.
Thank you.
And right now it's got a reverse repeater in it too. Any other questions? If not, the motion from Senator Polk is title sufficient. Do pass, strike all. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next is Senate Bill 840. This is our corrections bill. We've passed this with the two changes that come from the House. If you look on line 169, section VV, there is an addition for the town of Centerville. I received a letter from the town of Centerville related to the electrical system support. This is for the American Red Cross there. So that change would be in addition to the changes we've already made on technical corrections. And also, if you look in section 7, starting at line 622, there were several projects that we had in the bill from last year that related to MDOT items that were included, line items for MDOT. There were several projects removed because they've either been taken care of because it didn't apply, because they couldn't utilize the funds, or in some cases, it was the city or the county could provide the work more efficiently. And so those projects are listed. And I think we discussed some of these first time around, but it's Highway 80 from College Street to I-20, Highway 511 starting in Quitman towards Highway 45 in Clark County, the intersection of Highway 57 and Ira Turner Road, Ira Turner 381 Road and High School Road in Greene County. The next is intersection of Highway 43 North and Richardson Road in Picayune. Next is Highway 603 in Hancock County. Next is Highway 11 at the I-59 interchange. Those are the only changes outside of what we've already passed in our corrections bill. Everything else is the same. Are there any questions on the corrections bill? If not, the motion from Senator Polk is title sufficient, do pass, strike all. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. That bill will be reported. Next is House Bill 842. This is a strike all that's before you, and it relates to the, it's got a reverse repealer in it, but it relates to the fire truck program. I've had discussions with Commissioner Cheney about another round or some other vehicle, no pun intended, by which we could get to more fire trucks out, especially to some of these smaller, more rural counties. The problem they have sometimes is they don't have enough funds to be able to match to get the fire trucks that they need. I mean, obviously, the cost of a fire truck doesn't matter if you're in the biggest county, Hinds County or Issaquena County, the cost is going to be roughly the same. So this would provide some language that would allow the department to determine, insurance department that is, to determine those cases, and the total amount of the matching assistance allowed under this subsection shall not exceed 80% of the purchase price of the rural fire truck. And this would also allow then, that would include the funds that they receive from the rural fire truck program. And then also there's some guidelines about a county or municipality is eligible upon meeting the following criteria. A, they've got to have be approved for funding in accordance with the criteria in subsection 3, which is the rounds that they have for rural fire trucks. B is that the department determines that the county or municipality does not have sufficient funds available for the purchase of a rural fire truck with the funds in subsection 3. And then the county has received no funding for more than 8 rounds from the rural fire truck acquisition program. So this is designed to help some of our smaller counties that don't have the funds and can't access the rural fire trucks. And plus, it's not taken away from the existing rounds for rural fire trucks. We will have to have an appropriations bill at the right time to put funds in there, but I certainly intend to have funds available for the rural fire truck program under this section and the existing rounds of fire trucks. I'll yield for questions. Seeing or hearing none. Sorry. Who's got a question? Senator Branning, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I apologize if you already went over this point, but who will actually make the decision on awarding the funds to the counties? I see the criteria listed, but at the end of the day, who will look at those applications and make those awards?
That would be the Department of Insurance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. No other questions. The motion from Senator Polk is title sufficient, do pass, strike all. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next, we'll move to House Bill 879. Sorry. Yes, 879. And I will call on Senator DeBar to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 79 is a strike all. It deals with the EEF or the procurement cards or teacher supply card funds. It's a strike all of a bill we've already passed and sent to the House earlier. It basically states that they'll receive their cards no later than September 1st, and they have them available until April 1st of the following year. That's an explanation of the bill, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Senator DeBar? Hearing none. Senator, your motion.
Title sufficient to pass, strike all.
The motion is title sufficient to pass, strike all. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Bill will be reported. Next is House Bill 881. And again, I will call on Senator DeBar to explain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 881 deals with the DeBard School. Currently, there are some issues we're trying to work through related instructors and ensuring that we have proper instructors for these special needs children. We're working through some language on it. I think we have some compromise language coming forward. However, it does have a reverse repealer in it, and we're still working on it. It was double referred from education to appropriations. And so we're trying to get that compromise language into the bill at some point and keep the bill alive is basically why we're here this afternoon. So with that, I'll yield for any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions of Senator DeBar?
If none, title sufficient do pass, strike all.
The motion is title sufficient to pass, strike all. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next is House Bill 920. This is a bill I spoke with the Commissioner Kane, about. It concerns the Inmate Welfare Fund. These are funds that they receive as part of their commissary within the prison system. And he would like to be able to pay out of that fund, no state dollars here, pay out of that fund prisoners, excuse me, to work, to get jobs in certain areas near the prisons. So he thinks this is an incentive to get those prisoners to work. It's the monies that they have generated through their commissary program. And it is, as you'll see on lines 98 and following, it would be in amounts necessary to provide a balance not to exceed $1 million in the fund. Such funds shall be utilized to pay inmates who are participants in the Inmate Incentive to Work program created under the Act. Senator Hill, you have a question?
Yeah, it's just related to this bill. Has anything been done about what I've had people complain to me about, the extremely high cost of products in this commissary program?
I have not heard. That's the first I've ever heard of that.
Oh, I thought it was common
Maybe,
knowledge.
no, I've never heard of that, but I don't know if the commissioner or anybody from his office is here to
And
address.
it may not, it may not be the case. It's just was brought to me by some families of inmates. So if it is the case, let's look into it. If it's not, I apologize for bringing it up. Thank you.
Okay, we've got someone from the commissioner's office that may be willing to address
Goods in the
that
commissary.
issue. Okay. All right, she's gonna make sure the commissioner's aware. And what I would request is, if we can get that information as soon as possible, so before we get to the floor, we can address it. But I have not heard that, Senator Hill. Thank you for bringing it to our attention. Any other questions on the bill? If not, the motion is title sufficient, do pass. Make sure, is that a strike all or not? Nope. Title sufficient, do pass. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. A bill will be reported. Next is House Bill 1101. And this is something that's been brought to my attention recently concerning, it was first youth services counselors and the difficulty they were having under our state's trip optimizer system when they go out to pick up youth that's incarcerated or detention. They're supposed to follow a trip optimizer system that would require them to go, depending on the circumstances, go get a rental car or go to follow certain guidelines that sometimes gets them out of their way. They end up spending more time and money and they can't get to the youth as quickly as they could have. In looking a little bit deeper into this, I think this goes beyond youth service counselors. I talked to CPS, I tried to reach out to Bob Anderson today and we missed each other, but I think this goes a little bit deeper that we need to look at maybe other state agencies too. So what I'd like to do is keep this, again, no pun intended, vehicle alive. Let us get some more information. It may be something that during the conference period we can work out to make sure we've covered any agencies, particularly those that need to get somewhere quickly, that they're not hamstrung so much by the trip optimizer system they can't do their job sufficiently. This does have a reverse repealer in it right now, and there may be another change or two that we need to make on the floor, I'm told by council, and I think I'll just, hold on one second. Your indulgence, please. Okay, all right, I'll entertain a motion right now to change the existing reverse repealer to June 29, 2022. Senator Polk moves the change. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Now back on the bill. The motion would be, unless there are other questions about it, the motion would be title sufficient to pass, strike all. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you. Oh, sorry. All right, next on our agenda is 1222, and that is the Line Item Transparency Act amendments. This is, we've been through this before. I'm hoping we can, if you got questions, I can certainly answer them, but this is the same bill that we passed in the Senate already on the changes to line item transparency. And this is a strike all that we've included our language in here. Any questions about the bill? The motion is title sufficient to pass, strike all. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next is House Bill 1246, and I will call on Senator DeBar to explain that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 1246 deals with the early learning collaboratives, and the changes begin on line 247. And it talks about how the legislature shall fund the ELCs to maintain the goal of having 25% of our children enrolled into our ELCs. The next paragraph down increases the funding for ELCs for full-time students. It goes from $2,150 per student to $2,500. And then for part-time, it goes from $1,075 to $1,250 per student. The next change is on line 267. That talks about how we maintain our oversight of these ELCs. If an ELC and their lead partner have multiple lead partners during a 3-year period, that kind of indicates that maybe the ELC is not functioning like we need it to function, and that we should look into it. And so that says if it has that every multiple partners within 3 years, then the legislature shall look into their costs and their payments. And then on the very end of the bill, begin on line 315, it identifies that each ELC will identify, recruit, and enroll children to maintain the ability to and opportunity of each Head Start agency, and just allows more oversight of early learning collaboratives. That's an explanation of the bill, Mr. Chairman. I yield for any questions.
Thank you, Senator Barr. Question, Senator Hill, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you remember how many years that we've been in the Early Learning Collaborative Act? Senator Wiggins probably can answer that question. But my question would be, is there any way that peer, or we could ask peer or put in a bill for peer to do more of a long-term study on the students that participate in the early learning collaboratives versus a control group that did not, and try to look at more long-term outcomes? We know the short term is effective, but we don't know the long term. And a lot of studies in a lot of other states have said that the long-term outcome is not there for specifically certain early learning programs. But I'm just curious as to, when you invest this much money, you continue to invest it, for us to look at the long-term effect, not just the short-term effects.
I agree, and I think there's 5 more ELCs that have just been approved, for example. This bill does have a reverse repealer, so maybe something we can even do in a bill this year.
If we could just go back to like the ones that we first started with, because they would be further along in the process, and try to somehow, you know.
So I think we need to understand how they're affecting children, not just the short term, but long term. I think it's going to be positive, but we don't have the data. We can't say for sure.
Thank you.
Senator Wiggins, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you. Just to answer the question, the original legislation, if you look in it, has a peer report that is done every 3 years. There was one done about 3 years ago that looks at that, and it is required by peer to do an analysis of the programs. It was written into the original legislation. I will beg to differ on Senator Hill's claims, because actually what the studies have shown is that it works long-term. It's about high quality, and and that will be borne out by, I believe, once the peer looks at it and shows that we're doing that. So I know that different things get bandied around, but if you look at the studies and the data, it's high quality, and our legislation has been rated high quality, top 5 in the country, and we're seeing the benefits. And actually, we've done our own studies. If you look at those who are not in the collaboratives with those who are in the collaboratives, those in the collaboratives are performing at a higher and better rate than those who are not. The data's there. It's been published on ND's website, and it's done in a controlled environment.
Thank you. Senator Hill, you have another question?
I don't think we've been in it long enough to have long-term data. That'd be my only comment.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Not. Senator Barr, you recognize for motion? The motion is title sufficient to pass, strike all. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next is House Bill 1313. I'm going to recognize Senator Parks to explain it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What this bill does is create a path for foster children. This scholarship is called the Faith Scholarship. The bill provides tuition assistance for attendance for both the post-secondary education institution workforce training. In this bill, it also provides that the secondary, post-secondary student financial assistance board will administer this program. It also provides in line 61 through 65 that it calls out that all the students would be required to apply for all the other loan opportunities available. And then what you would see this Faith Scholarship do would be more or less providing the last mile, cover that cost, if you would. Also, the program is, it provides for 150 scholarships a year, if you would. And I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Senator Parks. Any questions? Senator Hill.
How would the 150 scholarships, what would be the criteria to determine who was awarded the scholarships?
How most of our bills read is it's a first come, first served.
First come, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Are there other questions? Seeing or hearing none, motion, Senator Parks.
Title sufficient do pass.
Motion is title sufficient to pass, strike all. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next, we'll move to House Bill 1353, and this is a strike all that just incorporates our language in the transfer bill. We've already been through once. Motion title sufficient to pass, strike all. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next, House Bill 1422, which is the incorporating the changes that we made on the highway patrol raises and codifies last year's raises. It includes the $5,636 raise for troopers and other NBN agents. And this has also a reverse repeater in it, as we will likely take this to conference to discuss final amounts and budgets. Are there questions? Senator DeBar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is this the bill, does this bill include the Capitol Police and the CTED officers that transferred over?
This one does not.
Is there, does it have a reverse repealer in it though?
It does.
I think, and I've talked to the commissioner about this. I think they need to be included. You know, we brought them over from MDOT, these the CTED officers, and we know we have Capitol Police. They need to be over and they need to be, receive this type of raise as well. It may not be the full 100% as a trooper does or whatever. And so I think that was kind of the promise when we brought them over from MDOT, is that we pay them accordingly, along with highway patrolmen. And so I'd like to have an amendment to include the CTED officers and the Capitol Police, but if you want to wait until conference.
I'll entertain the amendment now while we're on the.
My amendment is that the Commissioner of Public Safety be given the discretion to give raises to Capitol Police as well as the CTED officers. And that that way the Commissioner can look at his budgets and based on the appropriations that he receives from the legislature, determine what salary they should receive based on their experience and their training and their certification.
Is there, just so we've got the amendment correctly, is there a cap or a floor on the amount that you would propose that CTED and Capitol Police officers would get, or percentage?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a dollar figure or amount. I think the Commissioner can make, I want to give the Commissioner the discretion. If you think it's better to put a floor or a cap, I'm fine with that, whatever you think is appropriate. But I think we need to include these two agencies in the bill.
All right, I think maybe then let's just make sure we've got the code sections coming forward, or they're actually, that wouldn't be on code section. Let's just make sure that we got language in here that you've expressed that would give the Commissioner the authority to make those changes. And we're going to have to figure all this out at the end based on budget numbers and so forth. So I think if council feels like he's got enough in the amendment to bring forward the language that would give the Commissioner the ability to include pay raises for CTED officers and Capitol Police. Okay. Any questions on the amendment made by Senator DeBar? Seeing none, the motion.
Move for adoption of the amendment.
Motion is to adopt the amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you. Now back on the bill, on the strike all. Any more questions on the strike all altogether? The motion is title sufficient to pass, strike all. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you. Next is House Bill 1423, which is a combination, the House sent over a combination of judicial pay and DA pay and also criminal investigators. What we've got in the proposed strike all before you is codifying the pay raises the judges have or where they are right now on their judicial pay. It increases the DAs to the amount that we passed earlier in the session, which I think is let me double check that. 8,100, excuse me. And then actually criminal investigators is at 1424 that we're taking up. But so this bill is going to have the codification of the judicial pay and the 8,100 increase for district attorneys. I'll yield for questions. If there are none, the motion is title sufficient to pass. Strike all. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Then next is 1424, and that's the criminal investigators, and that amount is $3,500 raises for criminal investigators. And that, let me double check. I think that's got a reverse repeater in it as well. Yes, it does. Any questions on that 1424? If not, the motion from Senator Polk is title sufficient to pass, strike all. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And finally, before we get to ARPA bills, is 1426. And this is the strike all of the language that we passed in the Senate already that includes keeping alive the code sections that deal with the statewide elected officials. There are no set numbers. The numbers that you'll see in your strike all are their existing salaries, but it does include the language that will keep that alive. I'll yield for questions. If there are none, the motion is title sufficient to pass, strike all. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Now, I'm going to turn it over to Senator Polk for an explanation of the ARPA bills.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, you will find House Bill number 779. As you'll remember, in our ARPA legislation that we previously passed, we had funding for the life insurance policies for those first responders, policemen, law enforcement, and firefighters that lost their lives through COVID exposure. And if you'll look on line 40, it describes what we're doing, which is we're following federal statute that makes COVID a legitimate claim for death insurance. And then on line 80, it just says that any funds that are remaining at the end of the fiscal year will be returned to the coronavirus fund. That's what the bill does. It was close enough to what we passed that we felt like we could go ahead and move this forward. I'll be glad to answer any questions. If not, title sufficient.
Any questions? Senator Butler, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What was the difference in our bill and this bill, Mr. Chairman?
The amount of dollars was different. They have $5 million. We had 7.5 million.
Okay, and you agree to go with the 5 million?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Butler. Other questions, committee members? If none,
Title sufficient to pass.
motion is title sufficient to pass. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, barely. All right, Senator Polk, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to, if I could, Mr. Chairman, take up House Bill 1425 through 1427 in block.
That is the remaining bills on the ARPA list.
Yes.
Okay. The motion is to take up House Bills 1425, 1421, 1031, 1006, 1005, 453, and 1427 in block. Is there anybody that wants to pull any of those bills? If not, you've heard the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Senator Polk, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you'll look at and follow quickly with me on House Bill 1425, we are doing a strike all with our House bill, our Senate bill that we've already passed of 2822. It has the same topic interest, which is the infrastructure. Then if you will look at 1421, we're going to add a reverse repealer to it. House Bill 1031, we will take our Senate bill that we previously passed, 2814, and put it on that. Now, 2814 was not through this committee. It was through another committee, and I can explain that bill to you. But basically, it sets up a commission to oversee funds the state gives to certain government agencies and water associations that do not have the exact that they do have some issues with their water as identified by the Safe Clean Water Act. Then if you look at 1006, we're replacing that with 2721. That's our workforce bill that we passed for $49 million. Then 1005 is we're doing a strike all with 2419. And that's a loan repayment program of $6 million for nurses, practical nurses, and allied health professionals. House Bill 453, we are going to strike all and put Senate Bill 2849. This was the DMO bill for tourism, where we had $30 million to spend over 3 years. And then finally, 1427 is a strike all by only adding a reverse repealer. If there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Any members have questions of Senator Polk? Senator Delano, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Polk, what were the biggest differences between the House and the Senate position with respect to ARPA? And I'm really more concerned about the public improvements projects. Were they willing to go along with with what we had talked about throughout the summer about providing a local match?
They did not, theirs differed a pretty good bit from ours on that. They did not have as much money in the bill as we did. They did not require a match in some instances, and in some instances it was a much smaller match, where ours was 1-for-1 or 2-for-1.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Delano. Senator Norwood, you recognize?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Pope, 1031. It just creates the authority, right? There's no appropriation attached to it at this time.
That is correct.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Senator Pope.
Thank you, Senator Norwood. Any other questions? The members? If not, Senator Pope, you're
Time
right.
sufficient to pass on all strike alls.
Motion is time sufficient to pass strike all on all bills. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. That bill, those bills will be reported. Is there another motion?
Rise and report.
Motion is to rise and report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Good work.